Welcome back to the Drive Home Reviews podcast, where I review the movies I have just seen while I am driving home from the theater. And we are back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe today. I just realized they have 3 movies coming out this year. It's been a while since they've had a year so loaded with a lot of their big name movies. I feel like they're finally kind of getting back on schedule after the lockdown, which I know is weird to say since it was like 5 years ago at this point. But, yeah, I don't think people really take into consideration how much that really threw off a lot of films, and especially for a series like this one that's so reliant on interconnected storylines and characters, that it kind of jostled them a little bit in terms of their release schedule of when some shows were ready. So yeah, I feel like they're finally kind of getting back on track. I was thinking about it, and when I first started this, this is like 10 years ago, I think I started Drive Home Reviews, which is crazy to think about. But anyway, one of the critics online that I watched, who I had a lot of respect for and who kind of was part of the inspiration for doing this, used to say of the Harry Potter movies that it was impossible to do a review of a Harry Potter movie because the quality was always about the same. They were always somewhere between, watchable and pretty good. And furthermore, the further you get into the series, the less weight your outside opinion really holds, because the people who are going to go see a Harry Potter movie are already going to go see it, and the people who are kind of on the fence are probably not going to start in with numbers 5 and 6, so you kind of feel like you're talking to the wind. And honestly, that's a little bit what it feels like reviewing Marvel films at this stage of the game. Because, at this point, they're such an institution, people kind of know if they're going to go see them or not. And what's become very odd to me as a amateur critic is that it feels like what my quote-unquote job has become in the post-Endgame era of Marvel is acting as some kind of defender of these films. That sounds so weird, that Marvel, at one time so untouchable, now has lived long enough and created so much content that they've entered the opposite end of the spectrum. What is it that Harvey Dent once said?
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And that's kind of what Marvel has done. The quality of their movies has not changed. Like, the movies are still some scale of good to excellent. With every so often you hit a transcendent. Like the original Avengers or Infinity War, or the last third of Endgame. You hit those eras that are so amazing, and they're genre redefining, and then everything else is some combination of that was really good, or at the very least, well, that was entertaining. But so much of the discord online now is so negatively driven that now, of course, you get into the dreaded, oh, this is too woke. Oh, this is too this. Oh, this strays from the comics. And just not, like, literally, I went and saw this movie. I came home. I was looking online, and of course, the first thing I saw was somebody bitching about this movie, that it destroyed the Thunderbolts, and it destroyed the new Avengers, and it's a middle finger to the audience, and blah, 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 blah. And all of this outrage that is just so... I'm sorry, this is one of the... Like I've said it before, this is one of the downsides of doing these reviews the way I do them, is that the right word sometimes just flies out of my head. as I'm trying to form a sentence. But anyway, so yeah, I feel like my task is to try to defend the movies of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, you know, which seems bizarre. Like, you should be defending independent movies or little films. You shouldn't have to feel like you have to stand up for, you know, something coming out of Disney. But here we are. That's been my life this year at the movies. So with that big kind of rambling intro, let's talk a little bit about Thunderbolts. So is it a good movie? Yes. It's a Marvel movie. Odds are it's going to be good and it's going to be entertaining. Where this film becomes interesting is in the way it goes about it. I really do feel like this movie does a lot of things really well and taking their own flavor with it. This is at the same time kind of a direct sequel to Black Widow, because this is very clearly Ilana, once again played by Florence Pugh. This is her movie. She is our point of view character. She is our main point of focus. And it's her story arc that really carries through. So this is at once a Black Widow sequel. It's also, in another way, kind of a dime store Avengers, because you have almost the same plot as you had for the Avengers. In that you have a government figure, this time played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who has been kind of the dark version of Agent Coulson and Samuel L. Jackson from the original set of films, going through and picking up, you know, characters here and there and recruiting them for something. So this is finally the payoff to a lot of that, and a team coming together kind of through these bizarre circumstances. And it's also one of those Marvel films that falls into the category of there's something much more interesting going on thematically. You know, people can dismiss the Marvel films as comic book movies or fluff or whatever, but a lot of them, the really good ones, are very clever in their plot construction and in their application of the thematic elements they want to carry forth. And, you know, think of things like Black Panther, think of things like Captain Marvel, you know, think of things like Iron Man 3 dealing with post-traumatic stress. You know, there are these greater ideas that they are letting play out in the world of comic books and superheroes and people with funny names and weird costumes. So let's kind of take these bit by bit. I'm going to put this up now because there are going to be spoilers. I'm assuming that if you're listening to this, the film's already been out for about a week by the time this episode goes up. So I think most people who have seen it are going to have seen it, and they're going to be looking for more discussions of the film as opposed to an out-and-out review. So I assume you kind of know a lot of this. But just in case, I'm putting it up here, you have a spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. It's spoiler alert!
No, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Maybe say spoiler before you give away the end of a movie, okay?
So, let's jump in. So one of the first things that I think we need to know is that this is also a bit of on the Guardians of the Galaxy side of things, wherein Marvel has taken one of its side projects, one with a very long legacy and a very devoted fan base, but one that the average fan is not going to know too much about, and are giving it kind of a facelift. So in the original comics, the Thunderbolts came about after one of Marvel's big events, had seemingly left the Avengers and the Fantastic Four all dead. So the world has kind of this vacuum of superheroes. The big superheroes are all gone. So, and then all of a sudden, the Thunderbolts show up, going, we're heroes, we're here to try to fill the void, to protect everybody, blah, blah, blah. And at the very end of that first issue, one of the best, oh my God, jaw-drop moments reading comics I can ever remember, it's revealed that the Thunderbolts are not, in fact, heroes. They are members of a villain team that the Avengers had fought multiple times, the Masters of Evil, great name, who have taken on new superhero identities in the hopes of taking advantage of this world without heroes. Really clever stuff. So this movie takes kind of the very basics of that, mixes it in with a little dark Avengers, and comes up with this idea of a lot of these side characters or side villains from past Marvel films, such as Ghost from Ant-Man and Wasp, of course, John Walker, the U.S. agent from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Yelena and the Red Guardian from Black Widow, and throwing them kind of all together. I think one of the other things I liked about this movie, and I think why some of the hardcore Marvel fans are going to feel a little bit better about this one, is it brings back something that I do feel has been lacking from the Marvel Cinematic Universe since the post-Endgame era, and that is connectivity. I've enjoyed the movies after Endgame, but I will say that it felt like the larger universe has been a little directionless. You're wondering, where is this all leading? The first couple phases of the MCU were very easy to put together. The first set was about the Avengers coming together, and they did that. And then the second set of films was all about the Infinity Stones and bringing that all together. And then they did that, and then where has all of this really been going? And I think that is where fans have had a little bit of a harder time with some of these films. Good as they are, is that it's hard to see where all of these different elements have been leading us. Part of the reason we stick around for the post-credit sequences are to kind of get a clue as to where we're going next. And it feels like a lot of these films just haven't been doing that. And I think part of that is because Marvel itself has had to do a couple about faces. We saw, like the aforementioned, lockdown threw things out of whack, and they had to do a lot of replanning. And then there was the whole issue with Jonathan Majors, because Kang was supposed to be the next big bad, and they had to pivot on that. And so I feel like they have been a little adrift. So this film brings back some of that, because we have seen Julia Louis-Dreyfus at the end of some of these movies and shows popping up and talking to characters, and you're like, ooh, what's she doing? And finally we see that, okay, here they all are. This was all leading to this. So that's great. That kind of makes you feel like you're back in the Marvel universe, that everything was kind of leading to some kind of end point. So we bring together this team of misfits and villains and, damaged individuals. So if you didn't see the posters, of course, it's, like I said, it's Florence Pugh back as Yelena, the new Black Widow. David Harbour is back as Red Guardian. Wyatt Russell is back as U.S. Agent. We have Hannah John Kamen back as Ghost. And they form the core, and of course Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier, as Bucky. And they all come together because they've been betrayed by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is trying to conceal that this company that she had been running, which I think they meant to kind of set up in previous movies, but I can't remember if they ever did. But this company was attempting to create a new superhero now that the Avengers are kind of MIA. And by doing illegal experiments and whatnot and what have you, so she tries to kill her team, forcing them to kind of come together and just to survive, and then discovering their better natures and so on. And you get where this is going. It's not, the plot is not difficult to track. So let's start with our cast. Great cast. Great. Marvel has always done a great job of casting. As I said before, this is definitely Florence Pugh's movie in terms of who is our major driving character. And like I said, you could view this as almost Black Widow 2, because with her and David Harbour being back, it feels like more is carrying over from that movie than any of the others. And she's a great character to kind of put in that forefront. One of the major themes that we're going off here are characters who are lost, who just don't feel a connection to the world and don't feel a connection to what they do, and they're going through the motions. They're doing it because they can or they should or whatever, but they're feeling like there is something missing in their lives. There is a void, which is going to be very important to talk about later. And she's a fantastic character to kind of have that be the driving force of, especially since we are more familiar with her backstory than we are with a lot of the other characters. I also got to say, I love David Harbour's Red Guardian as kind of this Falstaff kind of character, this big, blustering, kind of a windbag of a man that is always kind of looking for fame and fortune. But when you peel all that away, there is a good heart and a loving father and a good man under all of that. I think in the hands of the wrong actor, that can go awry very quickly. But I think he walks that tightrope very well between comic oaf and really heartfelt character. It's something he's very good at. It's kind of his stock in trade. You can see it in a lot of his filmography. It's great having Wyatt Russell back as John Walker, who we last saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Just kind of seeing where he has landed. We've seen where Sam and Bucky have ended up, but we see he's kind of been cast off and is dealing with his own reactions. He's kind of the jerk of the team that kind of has to find his softer side. I don't know. His arc is a little harder to describe, but it works. It works very well, and he's a good understated actor. He doesn't quite have that stage presence yet that his dad does, but he still has charisma. And you want to see him you want to see the character do well and kind of battle back against his own worst nature. We get a little bit more fleshing out from Ghost, again, Hannah John Kamen, in this one, more so than we kind of got in Ant-Man and Wasp. She still feels like kind of the rest of the team. It does feel like she didn't get as much to do. And I don't know. I don't know if that's just my impression. I think with all the other characters kind of being a little bit bigger in personality than her, I think that might have pushed her a little to the side. I don't know. She still has good chemistry with everybody. She has a neat kind of friendship with Florence Pugh, and she and Wyatt Russell have some good back and forth. So here's one of those spoilers. I am a little disappointed, I will say, that they brought Taskmaster back over from Black Widow and immediately kill her off. And I don't know why they did that. I really don't know what the purpose of that was. Now, again, I'm one of the people who actually liked the reimagining of Taskmaster for Black Widow. A lot of people, oh, they ruined the comic character, blah, blah, blah. I felt like they reimagined the character in order to have it fit in more with the stronger themes going on in the film in which she was going to be featured. So I didn't mind the changing up. And I was kind of looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with her going forward. And I was very disappointed that the only thing they could think to do with her is kill her off. And especially in this film where recovery and trauma and survivor's guilt and dealing with past issues is such a heavy thematic element. This is a character who, like Yolanda, was virtually tortured by her biological father. And what that must have done. So I felt like they really they didn't get the most out of the character. I think she could have made a good member of the team. Or if they didn't want to do that, I would have still kept her to be kind of like Razor Fist was in Shang-Chi, and have her be kind of Julie Louis-Dreyfus's Darth Maul, and give the budding team someone else to fight other than kind of nameless, faceless soldiers. One villain who could have taken out all of them because that's their whole gig. And of course, being kind of a secondary boss to the final boss they would eventually face. So yeah, I do feel like that was a waste. And, I'm sure they had their reasons. I'm not mad about it. I'm just a little disappointed. I think you could have gotten some mileage out of that. But that's not the main story. Let's talk about the main story. So the main story focuses around a new character introduced, played by Lewis Pullman. And this is fascinating to me because we're getting kind of Hollywood, the next generation in this picture. You've got Wyatt Russell, Goldie Hawn, and Kurt Russell's son, and now you have Lewis Pullman, Bill Pullman's son. So he plays Bob Reynolds, who is one of the people that Julie Louis-Dreyfus's evil corporation has been experimenting on in order to create a new superhero. Only with him, for whatever reason, it worked. He has virtually godlike powers and is now a corporate branded superhero called the Sentry. And anybody who's read the New Avengers comics, like I did, the minute you know that the Sentry is involved, you're like, oh shit, stuff's about to get really fucked up. So for those who don't know, yes, the Sentry is from the comics, and he was created to kind of be, on the surface, a kind of a Marvel take on Superman. A character who was just the single most powerful being in all the universe, could take on just about anybody by himself. He was so powerful that, and apparently he had always been around, but in one of Marvel's brilliant bits of retconning, because he was so powerful, he actually had his mind wiped and forgot that he was the Sentry, and everybody else forgot he was the Sentry, or that the Sentry ever existed, to hide the darker secret. Because while Bob is kind of the most powerful being on the planet, his mind is fragile. His mind is broken. He is a sufferer of many aspects of mental illness. In the comics, as I recall, it was very vague what he suffered from. It was just mental illness, kind of the blanket statement. And the problem being is that while he got more powerful, this void, which is all of the anger, all the self-doubt, all the depression, the manic depressive aspects, all kind of fester and grow, and the more powerful he becomes, this void becomes just as powerful, so that there's almost a Harvey Two-Face thing going on, that yes, you have the Century, but you also have the void, which is just darkness and emptiness and everything kind of personified. So you have this interesting question of what happens when godlike powers are put into someone whose mind is not all-powerful, and what does that do? So again, the comics were very kind of blanketed with all of this, and very vague, and kind of cast a wide net. The movie really narrows it down. And I've seen a lot of people in the few days since this film has been released, a lot of people in that kind of community, who have various forms of mental illness or bipolar disorder or severe depression, posting things online saying this movie really captures it, and really captures the pain of it, and the fear of it, and that feeling that there's a dark entity kind of inside you that you can't face, and that it does it very, very well and very accurately. I can only say from my personal experience, I have a little bit of depression and whatnot, so I can kind of get it. I felt like it really did a great job of expressing that feeling of loneliness, or that feeling of you want to be more, but you feel like no one sees what you are. It's very well done. And I like how this group of Avengers, asterisk, come together at their most vital moment, when everything is collapsing and we've reached that all-important, all-is-lost moment.
The all-is-lost moment!
That these characters come together, and it's not for a big fight. It's not to take on the forces of darkness in a punch-up. It's for a group hug. Harkening back to the Guardians of the Galaxy all holding hands to kind of form, to all take on the burden of the Infinity Stone. We have here that feeling of all these characters who have their own sense of darkness or loss or the void inside them, coming together to basically help pull this guy up and help him fight back his darker nature. I like that. I think that was a brilliant bit of writing. And I think it speaks to why the Marvel comics and why Marvel films in general tend to be so beloved and so thematically powerful, because they pull from real world experiences, sometimes ignorantly. Let's be fair, when comics start tackling issues, a lot of times they don't know all of the facts either aren't known yet, or are just starting to become known. But I do believe that in most cases it is with a purpose. They're trying to do the right thing, or trying to create an interesting story. And the way that the Marvel films kind of take all that and strip away a lot of the dead wood and bring it all back to a relatable, real world kind of situation. Like I say, the fact that you have so many people, advocates for mental health and whatnot, posting about how important that this movie is, and how it makes them feel seen in the ways that Black Panther, in the ways that Captain Marvel, in the way that Miss Marvel, Shang-Chi, or Shang-Chi, I always mispronounce the name, have done. I think that speaks to the universality of these movies. And it speaks to why they are still going strong, and despite what the internet would have you believe with, Marvel's all this, and Marvel's tired, and Marvel sucks now, that it's still going strong, and it's still making smart, entertaining, fun movies with really good cast dynamics and very, very real world grounding. It's like a Muppet movie. That sounds dumb, but that was one of the things Jim Henson always insisted, is that you have to have that human element amongst all the craziness to act as kind of a lightning rod to give everything focus. That's why the Muppet Show had all the celebrity guests, basically. So yeah, I liked this one. I thought this was a good action film, it was a good buddy film. I liked that it expanded on some of these characters who I wish I could see expanded on a little bit more. It's going to be very interesting to see what their future is after this next set of Avengers movies. Are we going to get a Thunderbolts Part 2? Which I hope. We know they're all going to come back for Doomsday. So I have a feeling that the Sentry is going to play a very big role in that. We'll see what happens. So yeah, again, I feel like this has been one of the most unfocused reviews I've done in a while. I feel like I'm just kind of talking all over the place without any real focus. And that's just because I don't know quite what to say. It's a good movie. It's a Marvel movie. It's fun. It's enjoyable. I liked a lot of it. And the only thing I really didn't like was the wasted potential of one possible character. Everything else I felt worked really, really well. And felt like this one and Captain America both felt like a bit of a return to form for Marvel. Felt like we were going back to some of the earlier films. And again, not that any of the newer films have been bad per se. It's just, this feels a little bit more like familiar ground in the way it's structured and the way it comes across. So, yeah, I really liked it. And I have a feeling most people are going to like it too. The only ones who are going to complain are the people I've already seen. They ruined the new Avengers. They've ruined this. They've ruined that. They haven't. Okay? They haven't. Calm the fuck down. So yeah, so let's, I'm sorry that this one feels so disjointed. I really am. I almost wish I could go back and re-record it, but I know I'm not going to get any better with it. So yeah, so let's just wrap this up. So, final grade for Thunderbolts, I'm giving it a solid A. Yeah, right in the middle there. I feel like this is a good one. I'm looking forward to seeing these characters again, and I'm looking forward to seeing this movie again. This is going to be one I rewatch a couple times. So, yeah, that's all you can really ask from a film. So there you have it. That is my take on Thunderbolts asterisk. Which the asterisk does make sense at the end. I was very happy about that. I was very confused. Like, why is it with an asterisk? Like, why? What is that about? And I liked the way they kind of paid that off. I thought that was very clever. So I liked that. So anyway, so there you have it. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. All right. So thank you very much. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for sticking with me through all of that. And yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. We'll see you next time. And as always, drive safe. And I will see you at the movies.